is Swapnil Bharti and we are here at KubeCon and Cloud Native Con in Barcelona, Spain. And today we have our old friend, Darren Hart. You are Senior Director of Open Source Technology Center at VMware. So first of all, thanks for being on the show again.
Thanks for having me.
Here at KubeCon, I think it's last day or third or fourth. I have no idea which day we are on. It's been long week. Yeah. Anything, any talk, any session that caught your attention, just tell us about that.
So two things, I think, primarily. One of the things that I particularly appreciated was the recurrence of a theme around platform in many of the keynotes. And not just building a platform, but of the acknowledgement of some of this sort of chaos type development that happens in a project that moves just as rapidly as, maybe not project, but ecosystem that moves as rapidly as this one does. We're in a situation where there are no standards that we're trying to create. There's no POSIX standard that you can create multiple implementations of, as we did in the Unix days. But in lieu of the standards, we have open collaboration, open governance, open communications, and open source projects, which really democratizes the development of these new platforms. And what we've seen today or this week, we've had two specific instances on the keynote stage of this consolidation and the definition of new interfaces. So specifically the service mesh interface, as well as the open telemetry. And with both of these, we've seen a number of projects develop around a methodology or a topic or an idea, which has provided with very project-specific ways to implement your application that you're trying to build on top of Kubernetes, but that effectively pulls in these dependencies and makes it much more difficult to move around your different clouds depending on which service meshes are available, for example. So with these abstractions and these new interfaces, we further decouple the value add or the applications that people are developing from that underlying platform. We develop a much more rich, a much more capable and interoperable platform. And I think this is the area that open source really excels at. And allows us to do at a pace that's pretty unheard of, right? So that was probably one of the highlights for me, mostly because it shows growth and it shows acknowledgement of the need for platform, and it's really pretty exciting to see these companies that for a long time would have been adversaries collaborating together to create these better platforms.
So what is VMware's involvement with both these projects, service mesh interface and open telemetry?
Right. So one of the reasons that VMware is invested in open source in general is because of this ability to rapidly create new APIs, new interfaces, and new platforms. These are going to be the platforms of the next generation. And so it's critical for us to be able to participate in these and help develop and direct the way that they go. So service mesh in particular is a space that we have been involved in for the last little over a year. And in addition to service mesh, the similarly named but not particularly tightly coupled network service mesh is another area where we have placed a lot of emphasis, and another topic that has received some keynote stage reference as well as several well-attended presentations here at KubeCon this week. So those new areas that become a new part of the next generation of platforms is a key part of why VMware is involved in open source.
So let's kind of switch the gear, let's switch from technology to people, because if you look at open source is all about people, not that much about technology. And I was talking to Dirk yesterday, and he was talking about a lot of efforts that are going on within VMware, for mental health and a lot of issues. Did you guys do anything here at the event?
So we did not ourselves do anything specifically, but I did really appreciate the session by Dr. Jennifer Akulian on mental illness in tech. And it was, first of all, a very brave presentation to give. She talked about her own story, and then she backed that up with the science around mental illness and the many ways in which it can manifest, as well as the ways in which sleep deprivation and stress, two things that a lot of people in tech are pretty familiar with, can mock.
What is that?
Yeah, right? What is that?
What is that?
The ways that these things can mimic mental illness and result in very similar side effects and symptoms. But probably the most important part of that was the very simple steps that she gave to be able to act on. It's a lot of times if you don't come out of a talk with an action, it's what's going to change for having attended this talk. And she closed that with 3 really simple things: sleep, unplug, and talk. Right? Sleep, unplug, talk to people, get outside in nature, be connected with others. And I think that's particularly important in events like this, where the days are scheduled back to back all the way through the evenings. And of course, we're in Barcelona, so nothing can happen between 5 and 8. So your days go on well past 8 o'clock into 10, 11. Some people are out much, much later. So one of the things that I've done as we've been growing our team, and some of my team is new to conferences, and so one of the things that I've made sure that I've shared with them is to please take care of yourself when you go to the conference. Please be willing to take time. Please be willing to go ahead and take a break during the middle of the day so that you can be fresh and alert and ready in the times that you need to be. And to see that reiterated by a professional, and to even see the conference with a printed manual on how to take care of yourself at an event, which provides a lot more credibility than, of course, I can bring to that. So I really appreciated that for an event this size, where you're going to have a lot of folks that genuinely struggle with this many people all day long for a week. So I think that's a really good thing to see as well.
So I mean, you said, you're telling your, people that, hey, take care of you. But do you take care of them by either having, some program, some structure, or the way you guys work?
I think as senior technical leaders, a lot of us fall into the trap of this almost work masochism, where we take it as a badge of pride that maybe we haven't taken vacation in 6 months. And as we become more senior leaders, this is actually very counterproductive. And one of the things that my boss, Dirk, myself, and what I encourage the managers that report to me, as well as all of our senior technical leaders, is to please set a good example. Go ahead and take breaks. Please take vacations. Please don't show up early and leave late every day, because the way that you work will serve as a role model to the people that you are either managing or mentoring. So I think it's a responsibility that we have to set good examples there. VMware, of course, does also have programs that we make available to our employees, especially going through traumatic events or things like that, where there are resources available to them, whether it be for counseling or bereavement leave or whatever it be, so that they can take care of themselves. But I think that it's really important that on a day-to-day basis, not after some major event happens, that people see good examples of mental well-being and best practices there.
But let's unplug from work and let's talk about your personal life.
Sure.
So you are working on some new project, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, last time we talked about the projects that I have around architectural visualization, 3D modeling, and rendering. The latest project for me around that has been moving from a monaural 3D stereoscopic view of these projects to being able to make them stereo so that you get that depth perception. And while there's a lot of tools out there that'll create both the left and the right eye image, the process of getting those things into a very easily consumable image that you can just quickly put, say, into your phone and onto a simple set of goggles was not really available, and every one of them took multiple steps and was a lot of stitching. And if you're not a programmer, it became pretty opaque. So I did create a new tool, it's ArchViz VR Tools, I think, which will take stereoscopic images and merge them together into a Google Cardboard image format. And so now, just with my cell phone and an inexpensive set of goggles, I can take these 3D renderings and turn them into a stereoscopic view that has that depth perception. And the change in volumetric perception that this creates is really incredible. So the thing that I noticed most was if you have a monaural photosphere, everything looks far away. And everything looks far away because the image sent to your left eye and the right eye are the same. And so in stereoscopic imaging, if something is far away, there's not a lot of delta as it comes to your eye. And so by taking those two images and sending them to your eye, the things that are close to you actually feel close. And it's really a feeling as opposed to a change in the view, because the images are nearly identical. But of course, our brains know how to process that delta. And so it's brought a very new degree of realism to these views.
So you said you use a phone and goggles. So goggle is basically to see the image, right?
Yep.
But so are you shooting in the studio, or you're just taking one picture and the software is playing with it? Because
right. So I'm creating 3D models, and rather
oh yeah,
than,
you're not okay. So I was thinking that you're taking pictures and then okay, yeah. So that
although since you mentioned that, one of the things that I've done just mostly playing is I wrote these scripts to be able to take two images that were rendered and merge them together into a stereoscopic view. But to just test it, I actually did go out into the space that I was modeling, and using a tripod with a gimbal at the top, I took a photosphere and then moved it 2.5 inches to the right, took another photosphere, and it turns out my scripts will actually merge two photos as well and give you that same stereoscopic experience with photos as it does with renders, because they are just images.
So once again, Darren, thanks for talking to me today. And the thing is that now I'm looking forward to talking to you again. So we will become regulars.
Well, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it very much.